At 1:47 in the morning, Leila Moreno swallowed her pride and typed a number so small it felt embarrassing. $40. She didn't know the stranger who would answer was worth $8 billion, and she definitely didn't know that by sunrise, her life would never belong to her alone again. Before I start today's video and dive into our beautiful story, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being here. Your love and support truly mean the world to me. If you enjoy my storytelling and the kind of stories I create on this channel, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin our story. Leila Moreno had always believed in solving her own problems. That belief was inherited from her father, who worked double shifts laying tile until his knees failed, from her mother, who never let neighbors see unpaid bills stacked inside a cookbook. You handle it. You survive quietly. But survival doesn't always care about pride. The pharmacy receipt trembled in her hands under fluorescent light, $38.67. The inhaler for her 6-year-old son, Mateo, sat behind the counter in a white paper bag. The pharmacist's smile was polite, distant, trained. "I can hold it for 24 hours. 24 hours. Mateo had started wheezing at sunset, the kind of wheeze that turns a mother into a clock, counting seconds between breaths. Leila had already pawned her old tablet, already delayed the electricity bill, already sold the gold bracelet her mother gave her when Mateo was born. $40 shouldn't feel impossible, but that night it did. Back in their one-bedroom apartment, Mateo finally fell asleep upright against pillows. The humidifier hummed like a tired engine. Leila opened her phone. Her bank balance glowed, $2.14. She stared at the number for a long time. Then she opened a neighborhood community app, the kind people usually use to complain about parking. Her thumbs hovered. She deleted 3 drafts before posting. "Hi, I'm embarrassed to ask this, but my son needs an inhaler tonight. I'm short $40. I can repay by Friday. If anyone can help, I'd be grateful." She didn't attach a photo. She didn't add drama. She hit post and locked the phone face down. Shame has weight. It sits on your chest. Minutes passed, then a vibration. One reply. Scam. Another. Account looks new. Try social services. Her stomach tightened. She almost deleted the post. Then a direct message notification appeared. No profile picture, just initials. RK. Send me your payment details. That was it. No interrogation, no suspicion, no emojis. Leila hesitated. She clicked the profile. No posts, no mutual friends, joined 5 years ago. Her fingers trembled as she replied with her payment link. 2 minutes later, $50 received. Message followed. Get the medicine, keep the extra. Her breath caught. She typed quickly. Thank you, I will repay Friday. There was a pause. Then, no need. She didn't know why, but that response unsettled her more than the money. She wrote one more message. I appreciate your kindness, truly. 3 dots appeared, stopped, then appeared again. Take care of your son. That was the last message. She drove back to the pharmacy before it closed. Mateo's breathing eased an hour later. The apartment felt less like a battlefield. She slept for 3 hours. By morning, her post had 12,000 shares. Someone had screenshotted it. A local influencer had reposted it with the caption, "This is America in 2026." And the comments exploded. News outlets began calling by noon. And somewhere in Manhattan, inside a glass building with his name on it, Ronan Kessler saw his assistant walk in holding a tablet. "Sir," she said carefully, "your midnight donation is trending." Ronan didn't look up immediately. He finished signing a document first. Then he read the headline, "Single mom begs for $40, billionaire secretly pays." His jaw tightened. He hadn't meant for anyone to know, but the internet rarely respects quiet kindness, and now the woman who asked for $40 was about to become a national story. The phone rang again at 9:12 a.m. Lila had already silenced 3 unknown numbers that morning. She was sitting at the small kitchen table, coffee untouched, Mateo coloring beside her with a soft wheeze that still made her chest tighten every few minutes. The number flashing now wasn't marked as spam. New York area code. She stared at it longer than necessary. Something inside her already knew. She answered. "Hello? Is this Lila Moreno?" The voice was calm, professional, not rushed. "Yes. My name is Daniel Ward. I'm calling from Kessler Global Holdings." The words felt like they belonged to a different world. "I'm sorry, from where?" "Kessler Global. Mr. Ronan Kessler would like to speak with you if you're available." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Mateo hummed to himself on the floor, unaware that gravity had shifted. She almost laughed. This had to be a prank. The internet was cruel like that. "Is this about the Post?" she asked carefully. "Yes, ma'am." Her pulse began climbing. "I don't want any interviews." "This isn't media." There was a small pause. Then a different voice entered the line. Lower, slower, controlled. "Miss Moreno?" She swallowed. "Yes." "This is Ronan." No introduction beyond that. No last name necessary. She had seen his face on magazine covers in grocery store checkout lines. Sharp jaw, unsmiling, efficient. Worth billions. He didn't sound like a billionaire. He sounded like someone who measured words before releasing them. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" "I didn't anticipate that a private transfer would become public." Her fingers tightened around the phone. "You sent the money, that's all." "Yes." Silence expanded between them. She didn't know what billionaires expected in these moments. Gratitude, tears, deference. Instead, she said the only honest thing. "I just needed the inhaler." "I know." His voice shifted slightly there. Not softer, but closer. "I reviewed the comments on your post. Some were unkind. That's the internet. And some questioned your integrity." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't ask for much." "No," he said quietly. "You didn't." Mateo coughed behind her. A sharp, dry sound. There was a faint intake of breath on the other end of the line. "How is he today?" "Better." Another pause. And then he said something that didn't belong in a business conversation. "I had asthma as a child." The words were simple, but they rearranged the air. "My mother used to sit upright at night to listen to me breathe. She said the silence was more frightening than the coughing." Lila blinked slowly. That wasn't a rehearsed line. That was memory. She shifted in her chair. "I didn't know." "It isn't in my biographies." For the first time, she heard something almost resembling irony in his tone. "Why are you calling?" she asked. Direct. She needed direct. "Because I'd like to do more than transfer $50. Her spine stiffened instantly. "I don't want charity." "I'm not offering charity." "Then what are you offering?" He didn't answer immediately. She could faintly hear what sounded like city noise in the background, a distant siren, wind against high glass. "An investment," he said. "In what?" "In eliminating this problem." She frowned. "What problem?" "The gap," he replied, "between crisis and care." The words felt like corporate, but his tone didn't. No parent should need a community app to access medication. She exhaled slowly. "That's not your responsibility." "Isn't it?" The question landed heavier than she expected. You built your company. You earned your money. Yes. So why does my son's inhaler fall under your jurisdiction? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice had lost its executive polish. Because someone should have helped my mother. The simplicity of it silenced her. She stared at the cracked paint on the kitchen wall. You can't fix every mother. No, he agreed, but I can fix this one. Her breath caught. That was dangerous territory. I don't want to be fixed. I'm not suggesting you're broken. Then what are you suggesting? That this shouldn't happen again. The conviction in his voice wasn't loud. It was rooted. There was a difference. Mateo walked over and tugged her sleeve. Mama, can I have apple juice? 1 minute, baby. She muted the phone briefly, poured juice, returned. He had waited. I'm here. He continued, I'd like to set up a fund in your name for emergency prescription coverage, immediate response, no bureaucracy. Her mind struggled to process the scale. A fund? Yes. For how long? As long as it's needed. That could be years. Yes. And how much? As much as it takes. The steadiness of that sentence unsettled her more than the amount implied. Why me? She asked. Because you asked exactly what you needed, not more. That's because that's all I needed. Precisely. She leaned back in her chair. You don't know me. I know enough. From one post? From the restraint in it. She didn't know what to say to that. He continued, I'd like to meet, in person, public location, no press. Alarm bells rang in her mind. Meeting a billionaire was not normal. It altered dynamics permanently. Why? She asked again. Because if I'm going to build something around your story, I need your consent. Your story? You can refuse, he added. The transfer remains a gift. No conditions. There it was. Choice, not obligation. I don't want cameras. There won't be any. I don't want interviews. None. And I'm not moving to New York. A faint pause. I wasn't aware that was an option, he said dryly. Despite herself, she almost laughed. They agreed to meet the next afternoon, a cafe halfway between anonymity and visibility. When she hung up, her hands were shaking, not from fear, from the sense that something larger than her apartment was beginning to move. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and polished wood. She arrived early. She wore her cleanest sweater. Nothing flashy, nothing apologetic. At exactly 02:03 p.m., the door opened. He walked in without entourage, no security visibly flanking him, just a tall man in a charcoal coat scanning the room once before his eyes settled on her. Recognition passed between them without introduction. He approached. Miss Marino, Mr. Kessler, Ronan, Lila. They sat. Up close, he looked less like a magazine cover, more human. There were faint shadows under his eyes, lines at the edges that no publicist could smooth away. He ordered black coffee. She declined anything. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you not bringing cameras. I dislike cameras. That's ironic. Yes. A flicker of something almost like amusement crossed his face, then disappeared. They spoke first about practical things, structure, legal setup, administration. He had already spoken to attorneys, already drafted frameworks. Efficiency radiated from him like a habit. You move quickly, she observed. I don't prefer waiting. Even when waiting is human? He paused at that. I've never found delay to be compassionate. You built a logistics empire, she said. Speed is your language. Yes. And this? This is also logistics, just applied to breathing. The bluntness of that startled her. She leaned forward slightly. "Why didn't anyone help your mother?" she asked carefully. He held her gaze. Because she didn't ask. The admission hovered between them. She was proud. "So am I." "Yes." "Then why did you ask?" he pressed gently. She didn't answer immediately. She looked out the window. "Because my son's lungs matter more than my pride." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My mother never made that trade," he said. "She chose pride." Did she regret it? She never said. The conversation shifted then, less transactional, more personal. He told her about hospital waiting rooms that smelled of disinfectant and fear, about counting coins on kitchen counters. 6 months later, the headlines were gone. The internet had moved on. It always does. Another scandal, another billionaire, another viral story to consume and discard. But inside a small office on the second floor of a modest brick building in San Diego, the inbox kept filling. Subject lines that all sounded the same. Embarrassed to ask. Short by $32. Can repay next week. My daughter's insulin. The Mateo Moreno Prescription Bridge Fund had processed 4,218 requests in 184 days. Average gap? $36.12. The number haunted Leela in a quiet way. $36. That was the distance between panic and relief, between gasping and breathing, between pride and survival. She still worked 3 days a week at the dental office. She refused a salary from the foundation, despite Ronan insisting multiple times. "If I get paid," she had told him, "I'll start thinking like an employee." "And that's bad?" he had asked. "It changes the center." So she volunteered. Every evening after Mateo slept, she logged in and reviewed applications personally. They were simple. Name, medication, pharmacy location, amount short. No essays required, no humiliation disguised as verification. Sometimes she approved requests in under 60 seconds. She understood the tone immediately. You could hear dignity in the spacing of words. One night, she opened a request from Tulsa. "Hi, I hate typing this. I'm $41 short for my son's seizure medication. I can repay in 3 days." She stared at the number, 41. Her throat tightened. She approved it. Transfer sent. Relief delivered before midnight. The system was automated now, but she insisted on reviewing edge cases. Ronan had built the infrastructure within weeks. His team coded an interface that connected directly to pharmacies. Funds went straight to medication, not bank accounts. No misuse, no exploitation. Critics had predicted fraud. They were wrong. Out of thousands of requests, less than 2% flagged inconsistencies, and even those often turned out to be clerical errors. "People don't lie about breathing," Ronan had said once. He was right, but not everyone celebrated the fund. During a quarterly board meeting in Manhattan, one executive cleared his throat carefully. "With respect," the man began, adjusting his cufflinks, "the ongoing allocation to this initiative is significant." Ronan didn't look up immediately. He was reviewing projections. "It is," he said calmly. "Shareholders are asking about return metrics." "Return metrics?" Ronan repeated, finally lifting his gaze. "Yes, visibility, goodwill, tax positioning, strategic partnerships." The room shifted subtly. These were men and women trained to calculate value in decimals. Ronan leaned back slightly. "Breathing has no ROI," he said. Silence settled across polished wood. The executive pressed lightly. Understood, but we operate within fiduciary responsibility. Ronan's expression didn't change. I built this company so I wouldn't need permission to do the right thing. No one argued further, because everyone in that room knew the truth. He owned controlling interest. He didn't need consensus. But something else had shifted in him, and the board could feel it. His attention was no longer consumed solely by acquisition. There was a steadiness to him that hadn't existed before, a grounding, power redirected instead of accumulated. Back in San Diego, Leela noticed it too. He visited once every few weeks, never with press, never announced. He would sit in the small office with mismatched chairs and review data with her, not like a benefactor, like a partner. "You've helped over 4,000 families," he said one evening, scanning the dashboard. "We've helped," she corrected. He didn't argue. "Applications are increasing," she added. "That's expected." "Is it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because people are starting to believe someone will answer." That sentence lingered. Belief. It was a fragile currency. One evening, as Leela locked the office, a woman approached hesitantly from the sidewalk. "You're Leela, right?" She froze slightly. "Yes." The woman held a small paper pharmacy bag in her hands. "You approved my daughter's EpiPen last month." Leela recognized the name instantly. $34 short. "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman continued, voice trembling. "I didn't know what I was going to do." Leela felt the familiar tightening in her chest. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," the woman said. "That's why it mattered." After she left, Leela stood on the sidewalk for a long time. The weight of what they had built wasn't financial. It was emotional. Thousands of invisible moments like that. Relief delivered quietly, no applause. Just breath returning to rhythm. That night, she sent Ronan a message. "Someone stopped me on the street today." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "And?" "She just said thank you." Pause. "That's enough," he replied. But even as the foundation stabilized, a different tension began to surface. Media attention had faded but not disappeared. A prominent journalist requested an in-depth feature, a televised interview, prime time. Ronan declined. Leela hesitated. "This could increase funding," one advisor said gently. "It could expand reach." But she remembered the night she typed the post, the embarrassment, the vulnerability. "I don't want families to feel like case studies," she said firmly. So they stayed quiet. Growth continued anyway, because need is not dependent on publicity. It is constant. One Saturday morning, Mateo ran across a soccer field for the first time without stopping to clutch his chest. Leela watched from the sidelines. Her hands were steady, no countdown in her head, no scanning for inhaler distance, just movement. After the game, he collapsed beside her on the grass, sweaty and smiling. "Mama?" "Yes?" "Are we rich now?" The question was innocent, pure. She brushed his hair back. "No." He frowned thoughtfully. "Then what are we?" She considered the months behind them, the late nights, the numbers, the faces she would never meet. "Prepared," she said finally. He seemed satisfied with that. Prepared. It was a different kind of wealth. That evening she took a photo of him asleep, soccer socks still half on. She sent it to Ronan. He ran the whole game, no wheezing. Ronan stared at the image longer than he expected. The skyline outside his penthouse blurred slightly. He typed slowly. "That's worth more than 8 billion. For once it wasn't metaphor, because wealth that large often insulates you from consequences, but this pierced through. He thought of his own childhood bedroom, the sound of his mother shifting in a chair at 3 a.m., listening. He had built towers, acquired companies, moved markets, but none of it had altered that memory, until now, until one small post forced him to revisit the 12-year-old version of himself. Months later, a crisis tested the foundation. A surge of applications hit after a regional factory shut down. Hundreds of families lost insurance overnight. Requests tripled in 48 hours. The system strained. The operations team called Ronan at midnight. "We're exceeding current monthly projections." "How much?" he asked. "An additional $2 million to stabilize." There was no hesitation. Approved. Should we pause intake temporarily? No. But sustainability. Breathing isn't seasonal, he said. Funds transferred by morning. No press release followed. No announcement. Just silent coverage. In San Diego, Leela watched the dashboard stabilize. She exhaled. Sometimes she forgot the scale of the resources behind the screen. Then moments like that reminded her. Power was invisible until it wasn't. One evening, during a rare extended visit, Ronan sat across from her after hours. The office lights dimmed. "You ever regret posting?" he asked suddenly. She considered the question seriously. "No. Not even when it went viral? That part terrified me. But Matteo breathed easier." He nodded slowly. "I used to think asking was weakness. And now? I think refusing to answer is." The shift in him was subtle but undeniable. He began reallocating portions of his personal investment portfolio towards similar direct gap models. Small, immediate interventions. Not foundations named after himself. Not galas. Just quiet bridges. His advisors called it inefficient. He called it precise. Because scale without intimacy felt hollow now, and intimacy required proximity to need. 16 months after the original post, the foundation crossed 10,000 families served. There was no celebration party. Instead, Leela wrote a short internal note to the team. 10,000 moments of relief. That's what this is. She sent it, then closed her laptop. That night, as she tucked Matteo into bed, he asked another unexpected question. "Mama?" "Yes?" "Why did that man help us?" She sat on the edge of the mattress. "Because once someone didn't help him." Matteo frowned slightly. "That's sad." "Yes. Are we going to help someone when we're big?" She smiled softly. "We already are." He thought about that, then nodded and drifted to sleep. Across the country, Ronan stood alone in his office long after staff had left. The city pulsed below. He thought about legacy, not in terms of buildings or valuations, but in breath. Thousands of nights where parents no longer counted seconds between inhales. That was a different kind of empire. Invisible, unbranded, but enduring. He picked up his phone and opened the original screenshot of Leela's post. He had saved it. $40. No theatrics, just need. He realized something then. The most powerful thing she had done wasn't asking. It was asking without exaggeration. She hadn't weaponized pain. She hadn't dramatized. She had simply stated the gap. And that honesty had cut through billions of noise. Months later, during a private conversation, she asked him something that lingered. If your mother were alive, what would she think of this? He didn't answer immediately. Then, she'd say it's about time. The words carried no bitterness, just truth. The world would never know how many decisions changed inside that sentence. Years would pass. Markets would rise and fall. Tech would evolve. Names would rotate on wealth lists. But somewhere, every night, a system would process a small request. $30, $42, $28. And somewhere, a child would breathe easier. No viral post required, no embarrassment necessary. Just a bridge. Built because one woman decided her son's lungs were more important than pride, and one man realized that power means nothing if it never kneels beside vulnerability. The story was never about billions. It was about distance, the thin, fragile space between having enough and not, and what happens when someone chooses to close it. Because sometimes the world doesn't change with revolutions. Sometimes it changes when $40 arrives on time. And somewhere tonight, another parent is staring at a pharmacy counter, heart pounding, voice shaking. Maybe they won't have to post. Maybe the gap will already be bridged. Not because the world became kinder overnight, but because two people decided that breathing is non-negotiable. And that is how power becomes purpose. Quietly, without applause, but permanently. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. If this story moved you, surprised you, or kept you hooked, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps the channel grow. See you in the next story.